Hi, today I'm going to show you how I make a can safe and keep it safe. First thing, you need a can. Now, I like to use something that if somebody were to raid your kitchen cupboards, they still probably wouldn't be grabbing this to maybe eat if they decided to have a munch out while they're robbing your apartment. So I got a can of something like pie filling. They're not likely to bake a pie. Now, what you need is a jar, okay? And I've gone through a couple of jars here to find one that was the right size. And this one's close, but it's just a little too tall, and when I get the lid glued on top of it, it won't allow the can base to sit down in there quite like it should. So what I have is another jar. It's a little bit shorter, okay, but it will give me a little better result. It will fit down inside the can. It gives me about 1/4 of an inch of space, and I can still put the bottom on the can and have it sit as a reasonably sealed bottom. So what I'm going to have to do, I see that there's a little bit of space between here and there. That isn't real important because I'm going to have it attached to the side of the can, and I'm going to have it attached to the lid. Now, the lid obviously is going to have a sweet spot on it, where it's going to fit on the bottom of the can in a much better position. And it's going to look more natural. Okay, and what you need to do is find that sweet spot. And what you do is you put the lid on the can and turn it until you find that sweet spot. That way it's not so noticeable. Okay, it fits inside the can base well. Okay, and then what you do is you set the base of the can down like this and lift it up. And I highly recommend that you cut the bottom of the can using one of the side type can openers, something like this one here they call the Tornado. It cost me about $20 at Walmart. It's a very nice one, and it fits on the side like this and cuts. When it's done cutting, then it leaves almost no edge to it, and it does a very nice job. So you need to have one of those side type cutting can openers. Now, I'm looking at the size of this, and I see where it fits down inside the can with about 1/4 of an inch clearance. Well, I have some pieces of door insulation here that I bought at Dollar Tree for 99 cents to insulate my front door. And it looks to me like that would be just about the right size of it. I hate to waste anything, so I'm going to recycle as much as possible. Now, in order to prop this up to where it's the right height isn't real important at first anyway. I can put a sponge down there to hold it a little snugger when I get done with it, but it's going to be attached along the side, so it isn't real important that it fit the bottom perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this. It's sticky on one side, well, sticky on both sides, I believe, but it's particularly sticky on one. And you peel the tape off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this around the jar just below this little lip. I don't know how well you can see that little lip there, but there's a little lip there, and I'm going to put this just below that little lip. Now, it may or may not reach all the way around the jar. I try to keep it snug and tight. And as I come around, boy, that one fit almost perfectly. I think I can get away with calling that a perfect fit. It fits right there. I had another little piece. If it didn't fit reasonably well, I could manipulate it a little. In fact, this is even just a hair long. I'm going to take a razor blade here and just snip the end of it just a hair, because it is just a little bit longer than I need. And I've cut out about 1/16 of an inch of it there, maybe. Okay, which allows the tape to fit comfortably next to itself. Now I'm going to check to see just how well that fits in here. Well, I see I could probably use another hole layer of tape on here. So what I'm going to do, in order to keep the jar from rattling around in here, I'm going to make another run around the bottom here. And if it's cut a little short, I'd rather have it just a little short so I don't have to deal with cutting it with a razor blade. It'll still work. And I'm going to make a lower attachment here so that it keeps the jar from rattling inside the can. Weight wise, there probably won't be any way anybody could tell, but now look at that. I just measured that and I still cut it just a little longer. Measure twice, cut once. But there you go, I've got that. Now, because I know it's going to need a double layer, I still got at least another. I'm going to overlap that little cutout there so that what I should have done was cut me a new piece before but I can back up just a little bit from where I just measured. That should give me a little, yes, that gives me a little space. Okay. And I take this and I start off away from the cut that I made so that I have some stability here. And you can see what I've done with it. And I'm just layering this piece on top of the other piece. And I only have just a small gap in there, which isn't going to mean anything. And now as I put this down in here, it is snug. And luckily, it's also somewhat slippery, so that allows me to push it down in and turn it a little as I go. Alright, now before I get all the way down in there, I'm going to want to take this, okay, and layer it again in order to keep the can stable. Again, it doesn't have to be the perfect length. A little shorter is actually better. Peel the sticky back off of it. Find where your gap is and overlap it some so that you have a good tight fit. Stretch the weather stripping just a little bit as you adhere it to itself. It will maybe make you have to trim, but it will make it just a little bit less tight in the can going down in. And you'd really rather not have it too tight going down in. You want to be able to push it in smoothly. And in this case here, what I've done is I've pushed it down to where it's about like so. Now, where I have my can lid over here, again, I'm going to look for that sweet spot. Okay, I'm going to push this down against the lid. Okay, and now I'm going to look for that sweet spot again. Okay, I'm not going to put any pressure on the jar itself inside. I want it to be right at the top. And when I find what I think is the sweet spot of that can, which is like right there, I'm going to have to push it down just a little bit. Okay, when you found your sweet spot, now that you know that the can is going to look like a normal can when you put it back in the cupboard. By the way, I should mention that when you wash the can out, which you do have to do, of course, especially with something syrupy like the strawberries and rhubarb that was in here. Try to be cautious about getting the outside label wet. Try to keep it as dry as possible. It makes it look more authentic to look at something like this in the cupboard and finding out that it actually does look like a can of food rather than something else. Alright, now that I've got that in there and I've got it situated with the lid, okay, I take my glue gun and I squirt some hot glue on to the lid. It's a new stick, so it's not sliding through very well. And then I immediately take that and put it on top and press it down. Okay, it's a little warm in the middle where the hot glue is, so you don't want to just keep your hand there. Use the edges to hold it down. But you'll feel the hot glue here. It's actually attaching itself to the can right now. Okay, give that a couple of minutes to allow it to cool down. Now you may think we're done. We're not. I want to make sure that it does actually adhere to the side of the can. But you can see that's a pretty good edge on there now. Okay, and it doesn't look like it's out of place. If you saw that sitting in the counter, in the cupboard, you would think that was just a can of Lucky Leaf premium rhubarb and strawberry pie filling. Something that nobody's likely to open to eat, even if they are hungry and want to take a chance on taking time to fix dinner. They're not likely to take the time to bake a pie. So that makes you pretty safe here. And now that it's cooling down a little bit and you can feel the bottom and tell that it's cooled down, you take the top and you turn it. It's going to be tight, especially that first time through. Okay, and that's good. You want it tight. It shouldn't come off real easy. But now what happens is it unscrews from the jar top. Okay, and as you screw it back on, okay, you have to again find that sweet spot where it attaches well to the bottom of the can. And there it is. Okay, it's not that hard. Sometimes it takes a couple turns around the bottom. Now that you've got that done, you've got your lid fixed, we're going to take our hot glue gun while it's still plugged in, and we're going to squirt down around the corners of the jar that we put in here some hot glue to fill those holes and attach itself to the bottom jar, the jar in the bottom of the can, or at least along the sides of the can. And this doesn't have to look particularly good. Of course, the heavier coat of hot glue you put down there, the more it may look professionally done. But the idea is just to make sure you get enough glue down there to adhere that jar inside to the side of the can so that it does not ever move. And I'm putting a shot of glue about every inch or two around the can. It will dwindle down in and it will create a little bridge between the can and the jar. The tape that we put in there is going to hold it pretty much. Now, like I say, if you want to be really neat, you can go ahead and put a layer of glue all the way around. But who's going to be seeing the inside but you anyhow? Now when you take and put this back on, okay, again you have to hunt for that sweet spot to find exactly where it's going to go. And right there you go. And when you put it back on, it doesn't have to go on as snugly as it did in the beginning. You can have a little bit of play in there, but it will attach that bottom to the can so that it looks as if you are looking at a regular can, and it only took us a few minutes to do that. Now you have a safe. You can take and hide your valuables, your jewelry, cash, whatever you deem valuable enough to hide away, and put it in this can, set it in your cupboard, and no one will even know that it's there. There you go. That's how I make my can safe and keep it that way. Enjoy.